Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sharon, for the introduction to the session. Temitayo Olugbade. Everybody calls me Temi, so you can call me Temi for short. I'm a research associate at the UCL Interaction Center, so UCL, University College London Interaction Center. And there I work in applied machine learning, mostly focused on automatic detection of emotional and mental states from behavioral or physiological expressions. So for example, from your body movements or facial expressions and so on. I'm from Nigeria and I've lived in the UK for nearly a decade now. So that's me in short. And I would start off by introducing the panels, the members of the panel, I mean, and then give them space to introduce themselves, and before we then get into the discussion proper. So we have on the panel, Dayne Beccano-Kelly, who leads a group within the UK Dementia Research Institute, and is currently a World Parkinson Congress Science Ambassador. We also have Danielle Belgrave, who is a senior staff research scientist at Deepmind, which is an AI company in London. We have Adrian Joseph, who works with BT as Managing Director of Data and AI, and is also on the UK AI Council, and has received recognition, award, and honor for services to equality and diversity. We have Chantelle, who is the Deputy Director of Leading Roots, which is an initiative that aims to promote and support Black people within academia, and also is a postdoctoral researcher in Black British Studies at Pembroke College, University of Oxford. And we have Avery Riley, who is a data scientist at EY, and additionally mentors and teaches on the Deep Learning.ai Coursera program. So those are the members of our panel. Welcome, and thank you again for agreeing to be part of this discussion. Thank you. So I thought it would be nice to start off with just getting to know a bit about you, so about your work and how available you found or even perhaps benefited from community support throughout your professional journey to this point. So two questions there and I'll give you just a couple of minutes, maximum of 4, just to tell us, first of all, about where you work and what you do there. And then secondly, about how available you found community support through your personal journey. And in no particular order, I would start off with Chantelle. Do you mind starting us off?
That's cool, Temi. I'm sorry, my reaction was I wasn't expecting you to say my name. Usually in that lottery, I usually win. I'm like, it's not me, but it's fine. I'm happy to go first. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you so much UCL and the Centre for inviting Leading Roots to come and contribute to this conversation and celebration of Black inclusion within STEM and AI more specifically. I do feel slightly out of my depth because I'm a sociologist, but I do have some experience and have worked quite a lot in access, particularly at research level and beyond, and in more recent years for undergraduate access for Black, African and Caribbean students. I think it would just be worth me basically talking about Leading Roots and what we do. So Leading Roots was actually founded by Paulette Williams, who is head of student success at UCL. Paulette might be on the call now, so hi Paulette. But yeah, Paulette's a local at UCL. But yeah, Paulette started Leading Roots back in 2016 with the first event occurring in 2017. Paulette has got an extensive and decades-long experience in widening participation at higher education level, but wanted to find more ways to democratise information and knowledge about studying, student life and research for Black students and their families that was basically Black-led. We're with the Leading Roots, we're very clear that we definitely build on all the amazing work that's happened in widening participation over the past sort of 50 decades and beyond within the UK more specifically. But there was definitely, and there continues to be, this kind of elitism and kind of disconnect between how we navigate institutions, particularly elite institutions, as Black students and then later as Black academics. So the first events focused on were called Paths to University, and they still run now, and they're focused on bringing parents and carers and year 12s and 13s to a space where Black students or Black college goers and sixth formers can learn together about applying for university, so outside of their school setting, in a space with Black academics like myself and others that are part of the Leading Roots network, to give kind of culturally competent advice about UCAS, places to go, halls, student life, that type of thing. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our work through the pipeline, rather than being a sort of chronological order. So just before I do that, I joined Leading Roots in 2018, so the year after the first event. Past University's kind of sister events and work we do now, it's called the Future Scholars. It's called the Future Scholars Programme. Now, I think on this call now, there are some people that are at school or at college. You should definitely check out Leading Roots, check out our website, leadingroots.org, or follow us on Twitter and Instagram, because this programme is for Black, African and Caribbean students that are in year 13 at the moment. And we've just opened our applications for this. So Future Scholars Campaign is very similar to the events of Paths to University, but it's basically a mentoring program where we stay with you in the year building up to your enrollment at university. We help you with your personal statements. We help you make a decision about where you're going to study. It's very interdisciplinary. We've got experts in STEM, social sciences, art, history, everything. But again, from a Black-led perspective, we're running hybrid events over the next year, which what I mean by that is in person and online. And we want to support you in that year before university, but also during your time at university. So that's a kind of lower end of the pipeline that we work on at Leading Roots. And that's been... It's a really important part of what we do with regards to how we connect that to the later work that we do. So I am Deputy Director of Leading Roots, but I was also the Programme Director of the events and campaign Black in Academia. Now, Black in Academia is focused on strengthening the academic pipeline from undergraduate all the way up to postgraduate research. Again, like our other events, it's always about democratizing information and making informed decisions as Black students, as Black scholars, about how we can best navigate the institution. So Stay in the Course events that we put together was launched in collaboration with the British Library in November 2018, was trying to find ways to put out there to our community, particularly at undergraduate and master's taught level, that there was ways to fund our PhD research. Oh, sorry, I've only got 2 more minutes. Sorry, Sharon, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna roll it up. There were ways to fund our PhD research that we weren't always being told about. Sort of beyond undergraduate, beyond your undergraduate degree, it's really hard to find ways to stay in academia, was one of the things we were finding. And to sort of correspond with the events that we put on, we've had a number of events now. We tried to do a couple a year. Obviously, the pandemic slowed that down a bit. We managed to do a few remote events. But I'm just going to finish on saying that one of the key bits of work that Leading Roots have done over the past sort of 4 years was the release of the Broken Pipeline Report. So what the Broken Pipeline Report found was that over a 3-year period, so in 2017, 2018 and 2019, out of 20,000 UKRI studentships that were funded, only 1.2% of those were funded to Black, African and Caribbean students, and only 30 of these were given to Black Caribbean students in that 3-year period out of 20,000. So again, our work is very much focused on supporting, networking, and helping Black students and academics within UK higher education. But we are also very keen to target and speak to and consult with and help people change within institutions. So again, it's very important to have events like this where we can talk about and celebrate our successes and how we navigate these institutions through networking. But ultimately, we have done a lot of the work, and it's up to these institutions to make space or allow us to take our space. And that's kind of what the Broken Pipeline has very much signaled. And we can see some really great movements happening across the sector, but there always needs to be more. And hopefully things will continue moving across this trajectory. I'm sorry if I took up too much space.
No, thank you, Chantelle. I think it's very, very, very relevant to our discussion here today. So I think it's more me apologizing for not giving you enough time. Thank you. So I would hand off to Avery now to introduce himself. So if you tell us where you work and what you do there and how available you found professional support in your journey.
Hi, I'm Avery Riley. I work at EY as a data scientist. EY is a professional services organization. I work in a department which integrates business information from around the world, from different sources. And we use AI to facilitate search of that data and to assist in what we call the resolution process, which is trying to identify what's the same organization in different data sets. EY in particular is quite a diverse organization, particularly in the wake of the George Floyd affair. There's a huge effort to increase diversity in the company. My journey into AI was probably not typical. I've been working for many decades now. I started out as a analyst developer, went back and forth to consultancy and back to working for a straight company. And maybe around 10 years ago, I was involved in a project. I was working for a car leasing firm, and we had a project to create a scorecard for underwriters. So this was a car leasing firm is a little bit like a bank. A lot of the processes around it are similar to banking. And so when we lend or effectively give somebody a car, the underwriters would want to know whether that person could pay it back. So I was involved in a project to create a scorecard, which would take in information and determine whether that person was a good payer or not. I was involved right at the very beginning of that project in terms of finding the data for this analyst who did the scorecard, and also at the end of it. And I got very, very interested in that bit in the middle, which I found quite magical. So my route into AI, I studied physics at university. I didn't do anything to do with computer science, but that piqued my interest. And so my route into it involved things like I started to attend meetup groups, which I found really, really useful. There's lots of them around different forms of technology, whether Python, machine learning are, and I found those really, really useful. And also, what was instrumental for me was a set of lectures by Andrew Ng back in probably about 10 years ago. He released his, I think they were PhD lectures in machine learning. He released them online. And I went through them. It was very, very complicated. He sort of did everything from first principles. But he was really surprised that I think he said something like, he's at Stanford, by the way. I think he said something like, when I teach university, I'm addressing maybe 50, 100 students, but my lectures are going out to thousands now. And I think inspired by that, they set up, him and his friends set up this organization called Coursera. And I took lots of online lectures, but for many, many, many years didn't work in AI. So it's only the last few years that I've been working in AI. I found the route into it very interesting. I know you probably a lot of PhD students here. It's often said to be a prerequisite to have a PhD. I don't think that's the case at all. I think quite often in the hiring processes, you don't often get through to the people who really know what you're talking about. And I think this specification of this high qualification, sometimes it's just a way of filtering out people. You can get lots of disappointments on the way simply because you can't actually get through to the right people. So finding the right people is key. But perseverance, and eventually you will get through to the right person. You know, it might take time. You might get lots of knocks along the way. But eventually, as I would say, just keep learning. Meetup groups, as I said, are really, really, really useful. I mean, since the pandemic, they've kind of slowed down a bit in London, but I guess, you know, they'll be starting up again. But they're really, really, really good for getting a broad range of knowledge and experience. In terms of diversity and support for Black students, I know it's difficult for Black students. I've happened to have, I also lived in Jamaica, so I think there are quite a few challenges for UK students. I kind of feel that there's a difference in perception of somebody who is smart. In Jamaica, if you're smart, you're really, really looked up to, you're encouraged. It's actually a good thing. And I think one of the things that Black students suffer from here is this idea that it's not cool to be smart, is that it's actually limiting. I think racism is also an issue, not necessarily malicious racism, but just it can be simply a belief that you're not capable of doing something. I've experienced that many times during my career. So I actually think you should be colorblind almost, and accept that you don't really have any limits. When you're living in somewhere like Jamaica, where the doctors are Black and the architects are Black, and you don't even think about color really. And I think in some ways we need to be like that here. I mean, my view is that all of human achievement is my legacy. I don't really care about what color people are, and I don't think in some ways you should think about color. Anything is accessible to you, because I think sometimes if you get into that mindset, which is definitely a part of the working class in this country, which is knowledge is a preserve of the elite, top jobs are the preserve of the elite. If you get into that mindset, it limits you. So I don't know what the solution is to encourage people to not set limits that impose on themselves, because I think quite often people limit themselves. That's what I'd like to say.
Yeah, thanks, Avery. Sorry to interrupt you there, but just wanted to give plenty of time for the audience to also ask questions. But you raised a lot of interesting points, and some of them, hopefully we're going to discuss them more later on. But just to give space for other introductions. Thank you very much. And Danielle, yes. So if you could tell us about where you work and what you do there, and also how available you found community support in your own personal journey.
Yeah, so I'm just going to, so I think a few things. It's been really interesting hearing from the other panelists. So my sort of journey into artificial intelligence, I did my backgrounds in mathematics and statistics. So I did my undergrad in London School of Economics. I'm actually a proud alumna of UCL. So I did my master's in UCL in statistics. And my PhD was at University of Manchester, looking at the intersection of what are the limitations of statistics and how can we use machine learning to push the boundaries of healthcare. So for the past 10, 12 years, I've been working on machine learning in healthcare. The main sort of focus areas have been in, so what I'm really passionate about is how we can use AI and machine learning for social impact, how we can use it to make the world a better place. And this is very much the mission of Deepmind. So thinking about intelligence, how can we solve intelligence and how can we use it to make the world a better place? So this is something that I'm hugely passionate about. So I've been working in mostly respiratory disease, so trying to understand why is it that some people respond to treatments in asthma and allergies, and why do some people not respond to treatments? So a lot of my work has been focused on using machine learning to identify different subtypes of conditions so that we can personalize treatments. I've worked as a researcher for all of my career. So I've worked in academia and industry. I was a lecturer at Imperial College, and I worked at Microsoft Research before going to Deepmind. So I led a team looking at using artificial intelligence to understand mental health in Microsoft, and I've joined Deepmind 2 months ago. I'm going to push back a little bit and say that I think from what, maybe this is a bit controversial, but I think it's very important to be proud of our identity as Black people and very proud of who we are and where we come from. So I am from the Caribbean as well. Originally, I'm from Trinidad, and Trinidad is very diverse as well. And I think, especially sometimes when you're in an environment where you're told that you're not as good or you're different, it's very important to understand your identity, understand your cultural roots. It's true, we do want to accept people, and we are diverse, so we learn from cultures of others. But it's also very important that we share our own culture as well, and that we're proud of our culture and what we can contribute to society as Black people. And this is something that I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of the diversity of my friendships, but I'm also very proud of my own identity as well. And I think, to your question of sort of availability, so one of the things that I would not be where I was today if it wasn't for my support network, for my friends and allies, and also for my mentors, starting with that one teacher, Mr. Wallace in Trinidad, who was my math teacher and really inspired me and believed in me. And sometimes you just need that one person. And I think everywhere in my career, each place I've been to, whether in Manchester or at LSE or at UCL, and currently at Deepmind, there's at least one person who's really believed in me and has helped me along my journey in my career. And I think this is really important to foster these relationships. So foster that mentorship, someone who you look up to, ask for advice, ask for mentorship. I wish that I formalized this. I think I was quite lucky in that there was someone who took an interest in me. So for people that are more senior, firstly, I'd advise you, please take an interest in people who are more junior, because maybe I didn't have the awareness then to ask for mentorship. But also, I think for people who are more junior, look for mentors who you trust and who can support you on your career journey as well. Because this is really important. And I think the other thing as well is find a good group of peers as well who you can help along with your career journey as well. So people who are like you, going through similar experiences as well. This is something that has sustained me for so many years, that you can share experiences with people who support you, who are going through the same journey as you as well. So that's it.
Sorry. Thank you, Danielle. That's really very interesting and great points. And also, like some of the points that Avery raised, we're going to probably come back to them again later during the discussion. So we have Adrian, who has been having problems, technical issues connecting, but I think is persevered and is somewhere here, but might not be able to show video, but is available via audio. Are you here, Adrian? Maybe he's had to drop out again.
No, he's here. There you go. There you go.
Oh, you're here. Hello, Adrian.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm so sorry. I've literally tried on 4 different devices to log in on Zoom, and I've never had this problem before. So I apologize. I'm not quite sure why that's happened. So I've had to dial in. I'm sorry that I can't see all of you, and I've missed some of the introductions, but yeah, here I am. So happy to share my story if that's helpful, or wherever you are on the agenda. Happy to join at that point.
Yeah, thank you, Adrian. I'm sorry for the problems you're having. I know there can be always technical problems. But yes, you are just at the right point in the introduction to the discussion. So if you could just tell us a bit about where you work and what you do there, and how available you've personally benefited from or just found community support through your personal journey to this point.
Yeah, can I just say how great it is to hear another Trini accent on this call? So I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, up in Arima. I did really badly at school and left and ran my own business and did a few other things. And then 2 things happened that changed the course of my life. My father died in a car accident instantly, and I was the eldest of 6 kids. And I was self-employed at the time, and my business completely tanked. The economy died. And it was at that point I decided that I needed to get back into education. And a few years later, I had graduated from Manchester University with a degree in econometrics, and then went on to the business school to do my MBA. And since then, I've done a number of things. I'm currently the Chief Data and AI Officer at BT, where my job and the job of my team is simply this: is to radically and safely drive pounds per petabyte, PPP, pounds per petabyte. We have many beautiful data and AI assets at BT. We have more AI patents in the UK than anybody else. And so the job of my team, which is about 1,200 people now, is to turn those into business value and also into societal value. So I've been here for 18 months. Before this, I was at EY, which is Ernst & Young, a big one of the big 4 accountancy and advisory firms. I was a senior partner there, leading data analytics and AI in financial services. And before that, I was 10.5 years at Google. I joined Google just after Google IPO'd, so I was literally there at the time of startup, and I worked in the ads business. Then I worked in the cloud business. I was the managing director for Google Enterprise across EMEA for a number of years. Then I went into the analytics and data science teams, mainly working on the GA360 suite of products and also in platforms. So that's my journey. I also do a number of things for the government. I sit on the AI Council for the UK, where I advise the government on how do we ensure that we stay at the forefront of artificial intelligence. I started that in December last year. And so delighted to have played a small part in helping the AI Council to launch the National AI Strategy a few weeks ago. And I also am a member of the board, a non-exec director of a big FTSE company, Direct Line Group. So I will summarize by saying I'm passionate about 3 Ds. My first D is data and how to use AI to unlock insight that drives business value and societal value. My second D is digital transformation, which is what I do in my day job and have done at Google and at EY. And the third D that I'm really, really passionate about is diversity and inclusion, and diversity of thought, is the thing that really matters to me, but we quite often need to use, other proxies of gender and ethnicity and so on, and inclusion as a leadership style. And I'm on the advisory board of business in the community. We had a massive event this week where we had 700 people on a virtual event where we had Lord Woolley, Baroness McGregor-Smith, Sir Ian Cheshire, my CEO, Philip Janssen, and a few other people talking about their experiences and actions in driving ethnic diversity. And it's such a good time to be doing that in the midst of Black History Month. So nice to meet you all. Sorry I can't see you in person. You can't see me either, but that's been my journey.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you very much. And we have Dane left to introduce himself, but before we get to it, I just want to, at this point, invite the audience to questions that you might have. You can put them in the chat if you would like that, or you could keep your hands, you could use the reaction function to raise your hands. And hopefully Sharon would help me keep track of any hands raised. But yes, you can put questions in the chat while Dane is introducing himself. So Dane, thank you for joining us. If you could answer those two questions, where you work and what you did there, and how available you've personally found community support or even benefited from it through your personal journey to this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Temi. Can you hear me okay? Is that right? Brilliant. First of all, I would like to apologize for my lateness of arrival. It was pre-planned, but I am a supplicant nonetheless. I was at another talk and I quickly left it as early as I could to come here. But it's really a pleasure to be here. And I think I'm the interloper into the group. I'm actually a Parkinson's disease researcher. I work at one of 7 dementia research institutes that are scattered across the UK. Specifically, I work at the Dementia Research Institute at Cardiff University. And it's here that I work, as I mentioned, on Parkinson's disease. I work on a particular technique known as electrophysiology, which effectively allows me to tap into how the neurons of the brain, the cells of the brain, actually communicate with one another. Which is through chemical electrical activity. And so I have a large microscope and lots of dials and flashing lights, etc., that just basically allow me to sort of tap in and control a cell via plugging it into an open circuit and controlling the voltage and measuring the current, or vice versa. And so I can now begin to understand how the communication between neurons of the brain begin to break down or become slightly more aberrant or dysfunctional early on in Parkinson's disease, with an effort to try and isolate and understand how that goes wrong before the neurons themselves start dying and we start to manifest that clinical symptoms of the shaking tremor that we know and associate with Parkinson's disease. And so I started off my career, well, I was born here in Cardiff, actually, then to Windrush Caribbean parents, and then moved down to London and spent my youth bouncing between London and Cardiff, and then moved up to Leeds, where I did my biochemistry degree before biochemistry to a biochemistry with industry and Mayo Clinic in Florida for a year. Coming back, doing my PhD, looking into neurodegeneration. At that point, I was working on Alzheimer's disease. And then I've had a fairly sort of circuitous route to where I am now. I moved to Dundee, the University of Dundee, so far north into bitterly cold Scotland, before then moving over to Canada to do another postdoctoral position, now working on Parkinson's disease, before then coming to the University of Oxford to do a career development fellowship, which is where I was prior to this last 5 years, before winning a UKRI Future Leader Fellowship Award, which gave me a £2 million grant to start my own lab and to conduct my own research into Parkinson's disease and trying to identify the earliest changes that we can see in an effort to prevent Parkinson's disease. So in an effort to answer your second question, as I've moved through the different institutions that I've been at and the different departments that I've been within, I have very much noticed that at every stage, as I've moved up through my career, that there have been less and less individuals that have looked like me. And it may have been through some kind of fluke or bad luck, but actually through statistical analysis and assessment of higher education, we know that within the UK, approximately 1% of individuals occupying professor levels within university structure. And so specifically within my own area of expertise, so physiology, we Black individuals constitute about 2.7% of the workforce. And this is interesting because actually, as you then assess the number of professors at that level, there are actually no Black professors at that level. So we have some kind of issue and some kind of deficit in trying to translate individuals that are moving. So in terms of the community that I've had and I've encountered, it was initially quite sparse. This is not to say that I didn't have very good mentors, but those mentors, none of them were of Afro-Caribbean heritage or Black. And so I've tried to seek out more and more individuals that have had similar hindrances to their career path, had similar experiences, and they are possibly the events such as the horrific murder of George Floyd caused a resurgence of individuals caring about this lack of diversity within various aspects of our structure within the United Kingdom. And it's pushed on and started to affect my particular area of academic research in the research structure within neurodegeneration in the larger physiological. And so now started to find groups and individuals and people to talk. And importantly, people that are in a better position of power and those that aren't Black or that actually occupy places and structures actually affect policy design, have also asked and begun asking questions. There is a community out there. Immediately, I'm very much glad that I'm starting to become more and more of an interest in.
Thank you, Dane. And just to say that perhaps maybe turning off your video might help, because I think maybe it was just me, but there was a bit of cutting out there. So if you maybe turn off your video, maybe it will stream better. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Thank you to all members of the panel for the very detailed introduction and also the other interesting bits you included. So we're ready. I've started to get questions. I have questions in my chat window. And I would start with the one that asks, how would you like to be approached as a mentor? And I would expand it a bit further to say, so the original question is, how would you like to be approached as a mentor? But like I said, I would expand it further to also include, how does one become part of a network, either in a one-to-one mentoring, as a mentee or a mentor, or in a wider community. And I think I would start with Danielle, if you don't mind starting us off with that.
Yes, so that's a great question. So I think two things. So part of the AI community, so one of the things I didn't talk about was there's a group called Black in AI, and this is a fantastic community. I think affinity groups are really good for finding people who are similar like you. So I'm a member of the Board of Women in Machine Learning, and I also participate in Black in AI. There's also the Deep Learning in Indaba. So Shakira, who's going to be in the next panel, is one of the founders of the Endeavour, and it's all about increasing participation. So these are really important places and spaces for mentorship as well. So this is one way to encounter mentors in these settings. So with mentorship, I think it's a matter of reaching out to people, seeing someone who has similar interests, or you meet someone at a networking event and you can ask them, will you be my mentor? But what I think is really important is that when you approach someone for mentorship, be very clear, what do you want out of this mentorship? So having very clear agendas, having very clear, what do I expect out of this as well, is really important, so that you use the time well and you get what you want out of these conversations, but also you value the mentor's time as well by saying, this is what I want to get out of this conversation. So those are my pieces of advice.
Yeah, thank you very much, Danielle. I was wondering, Adrian, what are your own thoughts? First of all, how would you like to be approached as a mentor yourself? But also, how do you think, what other ideas do you have for becoming part of either a one-to-one mentoring network or a wider community?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think. I mean, the first time I did mentoring was when I was leading cloud at Google, and we ran a top-back talent program, and I mentored 3 people over the course of that time, and I was thinking about, some of them. I mean, they were all hugely talented, a lot more talented than me. So they were sort of, assigned to me in that sense, but I was the exec sponsor for this program and trying to, get more visibility of why, that would be a good place for people to work. I did the same at EY. And I remember one person, Jed, I mean, he was doing his PhD at Oxford. And I'm thinking, how am I ever going to help a guy like this, right, who's, so accomplished and, so far ahead of me? But then, through asking him questions about, his aspirations, where he wanted to get to, and through that we built a plan. We met, for an hour for 8 weeks each week. And at the end of it, he learned a lot, but I think I got a lot more out of that than maybe Jed did. So I don't think I've ever had anybody approach me straight up and said, would you be my mentor? Because I think that might seem a little bit strange. The ways in which I have benefited from people who've mentored me was more around, asking for a bit of time, for a bit of advice, for 30 minutes. And I think it's through building some relationships with people that, you begin to maybe get. I've been mentored more informally than formally, has been my experience. And in my job at BT, I mentor 3 or 4 people, any one time. I've also done, mentoring at scale, right? So I was on the board of the charity Alito, and I remember taking 10 of those very talented Black individuals down. We met in a park, and a lot of the questions were the same, right? So doing mentoring at scale where you get 10 or more people, to get around and ask, I think is a really, really effective way. In terms of networks, a lot of those have just happened naturally through the work that I do. I'm connected to women in data, women in tech, girls in data. Through the AI Council, there are many connections that are made there. Through forums like CogX that I speak at every now and again. I think those are ways. But demonstrating passion, demonstrating interest, knowing something about me or whoever you approach as a mentor, and why, what are the things that would connect you to that person as an individual, and being clear to Danielle's point about what is it that you want out of that, are really, really important points.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you very much. Yes, and so we have another question here, and I'll read it exactly how it was worded. Avery mentioned that there seems to be a stigma for Black kids to be smart in the UK. How can we address this and change this attitude? Where does it begin, and what can we do? And I don't know.
Can I come in on this one?
Yeah.
There was something that said on the. I just want to address this because it was said on the panel, and I really, really want us to be careful with these kind of narratives, but also reject them. There are plenty of Black students and academics that very much value education and knowledge production. It is simply not true that Black people in general in Britain see education as something not cool. I've got the stats, events, various research that will show you this fact. And again, like, I'm not the first to resist these kinds of dialogues, but it sometimes does seem to be something that we kind of internalize and then project as Black people ourselves, and we should be resistant to this. At Leading Roots, we do quite a lot of training with people like yourselves that are on the panel that are involved in STEM and AI and that are involved in like more corporate research roles, etc. And what a key thing that we kind of say to particularly Black academics that are in this field as well, to help you navigate this stuff in terms of your sense of self, is to engage in the decades of social science research on education. Like, there is so much work out there that points to some of the things that we've been talking about on the panel that take it away from the individual and focus on the structures that we are navigating and have always been navigating. We have always been equipped with education, knowledge, sharing of resources together as a collective. It is simply that the institutions and organisations themselves are built on racism, that these things that we've been excluded so much. It is simply not about anything internal to Black people. And I just wanted to make a point of saying that, particularly because I know there's a lot of young people on this call, and I just don't want you to think that anyone within the academy, particularly as Black scholars, think that you don't value education. We know you do. You come to our events and engage with us in troves. I would also, just want to say that there are, as well as, you should check out the Leading Roots networks. We've got loads of amazing academics that are within STEM and social sciences, but also, like, there's so much work like on the sociology of education that covers so much of this stuff. And it's not about sociology, it's about STEM, it's about interdisciplinary stuff and how we are excluded and what can be done. So, like, people like David Gilbourne, Heidi Mirza, Jason Arday, like, there's so many people that have written about this stuff. So it does sometimes feel like we're kind of going back in time when we're talking about how we feel as individuals, rather than looking at the structures that have actually impeded our experiences. Of course, we've worked hard, we've had to work hard, we've had to work a lot harder, like, we know that. But, like, it's not just about, we should have the space, number one, to be mediocre if we want to be mediocre, but number two, transition through higher education in a way that doesn't just put things onto us and actually looks to the organisations, the structures and the gatekeepers that keep us out, because we are achieving. We do have the grades, we do have the qualifications, the goalposts simply keep moving. So I hope that addresses something that was said on the panel earlier on that I think is very wrong, but also addresses the question that came from the audience.
Thank you, Chantelle. Thank you.
May I say one?
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Sorry, Adrian here. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I mean, I so agree with the comments that Chantelle just made. I mean, I don't know where that's come from. Apologies that I missed some of the earlier context. But I mean, one thing I do think about, right, is the role of parents and teachers in helping to overcome some of these myths as I see them, right, and to ensure that we got the right encouragement and support. And in some parts of our community, you know, I have observed over the years, and I was chair of the Race Equality Board for many years and was awarded an OBE for the work that I did in diversity and inclusion, you know, in that context. But what I have found and been told over the years is that some parts of our community, parents say, look, you know, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer or an accountant. Those are all brilliant, you know, brilliant careers, and, you know, absolutely yes. But, you know, not enough of our parents also telling us to be, you know, technologists, to be, you know, AI experts, AI architects, MLOps experts, and so on. So I think there's a role for parents to, and for maybe us to help parents to understand a bit more about the world of tech, and that, you know, increasingly, I think, you know, we're going to see many more people from our community having brilliant careers, many more than we have now, having brilliant careers in this sector. But we need the help of parents as well as teachers, in my view.
Can I come back on that as well?
Yeah, go ahead, Avery.
Because I was the one who mentioned this idea about holding ourselves back. And I appreciate what you say, Chantelle, but I really do think there is an issue of it's not cool to be smart, and I don't.
What is that? Sorry, Avery. What is that? Is that anecdotal?
It's not. It's not based. I don't think it's anything to do with like race. I think it's more to do with class, and I do feel. I mean, I'll give you for instance. Okay, and this was some time ago. I was in the lower sixth. I just come to England, and a little boy of about 13, 14 to me, he looked up to me and he said, "Why are you in the sixth form?" And I said, "What do you mean, why am I in the sixth form?" He said, Why are you in the sixth form?" And I don't understand what you mean. He said, "Black people are not supposed to be in the sixth form." He really believed that. And there is definitely a class issue where people, you know, you talk about the gatekeepers, and sometimes the gatekeepers keep people out, but sometimes we keep ourselves out. And I think I'm not blaming people for that, but I think that really does exist.
Avery, I hear what you're saying, but with all due respect, like, as a sociologist, like, what you're saying is like completely devoid of any kind of research backing. Like, I wouldn't come to you and say to you about AI, like what happens there. Like, I'm saying to you, there is decades and decades of work that literally disputes your entire anecdote there. And I just think it's really important, particularly as there's young people on this call, to make sure that they know that we don't think that of them. And actually, the things that we can do is highlight ways in which we can better navigate the institution together and as a network. It simply isn't that there's something inherently wrong with us. Of course, we can talk about class, but some of the most ambitious people in our community are working with Black kids.
Sorry to interrupt here. Just so that we cover some of the other questions. I think this is really interesting. Well, not interesting, but important thing to address. And I enjoy as Chantelle and Adrian have had opportunity to address that, and also for Avery to try to clarify what he was saying. But I think I would give Dane now an opportunity to say something, because I think he was about to contribute to that.
I mean, thank you. I just wanted to say that I do wholeheartedly agree that there is enough evidence in the field. I mean, dating all the way back to social evidence like Bernard Cord and publishing showing that, you know, individuals of Afro-Caribbean descent are not academically inept. We are very, very good. And in most cases, we actually outperform up to a certain point. And I think then, therefore, not to fence it, there is the caveat that goes there. Why is there that drop-off? What's actually occurring at those stages? And that's kind of what we need to address. I think by the simple fact of this conversation, this lively debate, which is completely warranted, by the way, the fact that we're actually having it does show that there are both sides happening within our own culture. it does show that there will be individuals that will turn around to their children. And I think Adrian just said it, the fact that people won't actually say to their children, well, yeah, being a medical doctor is all well and good. But actually turning around and being a research scientist like myself may not actually be a particularly good endeavor. And I've actually heard that firsthand, to say that anecdotally as well. So there will be some kind of pressures within our own culture system that will cause a detrimental effect on the individuals coming through the system. Well, I can't achieve that, or there's no point in going after that. When actually it's the complete opposite is true. Everybody in this room should understand that you're completely capable of achieving anything you want to do. And so just to go back to which links to the point I was going to make, and which to the question, I think that the best time to address this is as young as possible. We need to ingrain into the youth's minds that you are completely capable of doing whatever you want. And it should not just be directed to Black children. It should be to their peers as well. Because the idea that this will happen later on when you come to go and get hired for jobs or go into positions of power, the problem is the people that are going to hire you are more than likely at the moment not going to be Black. And so those people are the ones where you have to remove the barrier from their minds and the stigma in their minds that there is some kind of issue that Black people are not as intelligent. They're not going to do and fare as well within these particular areas that you're doing. And so I just think that I helped to try and create an award, Aspiring Black Physiologist Award, which directly tries to go into schools at young ages to show them that there's been a wealth of individuals that have gone on to contribute to scientific research. And scientific research is an area which it should be welcoming, because it has been in the past for individuals, and that this isn't an area to be cut off from you. And that the idea of presenting this will not only be aimed at individuals, Black individuals, but their peers also, because that's what we've got to change. And the final point I'd like to make is that this thing isn't going to change overnight, right? We have to make a stepwise change. And so everybody in this room, even the students in this room, could go in and go back to schools and say, this is what I've encountered, this is what I've learned, and just make it much more apparent so that there's a generational change, every stepwise change, every generation, that we can actually achieve a shift in people's thinking, that we can actually attain, exactly what we're capable of doing.
Thank you very much, Dane. Yeah, and just because of time constraints, I'm going to take our last question from also a member of the audience, and I think is a tough one, but I'm going to give everyone on the panel 1 minute to contribute to this. And the question is, what is the best bit of advice you have ever received from a mentor? And I'm going to start off with Danielle.
This is a really hard one. So I think that, so different things work for different people. 2 pieces of advice that I found interesting was they're very research oriented. So the first was focus. This suits me as a personality. I think it's really important to focus. And one mentor told me when you're working in machine learning and AI, so you're solving problems generally. So it's good to learn one technique really, really, really well, and then go on to the other. So make sure you have practice in really exercising that muscle and capability in AI. So that's the best piece of advice I've gotten.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. And Avery, you don't mind sharing with us, please?
Yeah, sure. That's a tough one. I think it's just persevere and never give up, and know that no matter how many knockbacks you get, when you get to the right place, if you prepare and work hard and don't be disappointed, the opportunities will come. In terms of recruitment, for example, you may find that it feels like a waste of time because you're not getting through, but just never be disheartened, because as long as you keep working hard, and my mum used to say, great heights reached and kept are not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward through the night. So just carry on working and the opportunities will come. And just when they come, just make sure you're ready for them.
Thank you, Avery. Dane, what is the best bit of advice you ever received from a mentor?
That is really quite hard. I would say, first of all, I have several mentors. I always think that that's a good idea, not just to have one, but have a few different perspectives on what you should be doing. But one of the things that has been said to me is that you can achieve anything once you set your mind to it, but specifically to plan it out, to visualize how you can make something happen. And that can sometimes take planning and execution. It's like thinking through a chess match. So it was the analogy that was given to me. So you have to think 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, but put those plans into action. Don't just sit and wait for things to happen for you. Visualize, plan, and execute.
Thank you very much, Dane. And Chantelle?
Yeah, it's a really hard question. Like Dane, yeah, I think lots of mentors is good than just one. But I think I would say that something that we talk about at Leading Roots is how, because of what we experience throughout the entirety of our education career, from school to university, because we experience so much rejection, sometimes it's hard for us to ask for help. And actually, that's the thing that we need to be doing more so than not. The people that are the most successful within research, within academia, are the people that have been taught that it's from day dot, that it's about networks and it's about asking people, how do I do this? How do I do that? So yeah, always ask for help. And if that person can't help you, ask someone else, ask multiple people. And yeah, like one of the things we say at Leading Roots, that if we're not asking for the help, someone else is, and we know who those people are more likely to be. So yeah.
Thank you, Chantelle. And Adrian, what is the best piece of advice you received from a mentor?
Oh gosh, I mean, I have so many mentors, right, that are, much younger than me, that are older than me, and all the rest of it. So a couple of levels. I think one is, that really impossible is nothing, right? That you can achieve anything you want. And if I can leave, secondary school with 4 O levels, as they were called back in the day, GCSEs, at C level, and get to the most senior levels in data and AI, and represent support the government on the AI Council, then any of you on this call can do that. And I would just say, it's a blend of mindset plus skill set, right? You've got to have the passion, the dedication, but the self-belief is really, really critical. And I guess the final thing I would say is around, there are so many avenues within AI, right? And we focus a lot on the technical side, but we need AI ethicists, we need, architects, we need people who understand business context and can, bridge between the art of the possible, i.e. the tech, and how we can bring this to solve, big problems in business and society. So, there are many, many routes to AI, magnificent AI careers that all of us should be thinking about.
Thank you very much. And I would like everyone to look for your reaction function and give a round of applause to our panelists for their time and for the very lovely discussion and tips and and advice. Thank you very much, everyone. And hope you have time to stay for some of the rest of the session. And thank you.
Temi, great sharing. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all our panelist members for the discussions, for their stories, for their advice, for their time. And a big thank you to Temi, because Temi was part of our decision-making committee who helped shape the day and the event, and volunteered to step up, which in and of itself is a small step towards mentoring by just stepping forward. So we're really, really grateful. Thank you so much, Temi.